I am Nick Shell, a certified Enneagram coach. You're watching this video where I keep talking about this book because I have to credit this book for helping me understand my true Enneagram type, which is 6 wing 7, the sexual subtype, which is the counterphobic subtype, which means I usually don't look like a 6 to a lot of people. I look more like an 8 or a 7. This book helped me understand that. The Honest Enneagram by Sarah Jane Case. You can buy this book if you wish by clicking the link below. It takes you to Amazon. I'm going to safely toss the book onto the sofa because 6s are all about safety, right? Also, if you don't know which Enneagram you are and you'd like to understand it better, I'll make it easy for you. There's a link there. It takes you to Cloverleaf. It takes about 10 minutes. It's free. You might be able to find out your Enneagram type that way. And then also, if you really just want to dig deep like I have and go all the way with this thing, you can. You can become certified for Enneagram through Cloverleaf. You can click a link to do that. 4 of you actually did. Like, just by me mentioning that, you did already this year. And I know about it because Cloverleaf tells me about it when anyone signs up and does that. So that's pretty cool. Thank you. Thank all 4 of you right there. I don't know who you are. We've never conversed, but thanks. Let's get existential here. Let's get real deep on this one. So this is something I'm sorting out. Keep in mind, I'm only fully aware that I'm a 6, like not even 2 weeks yet, like maybe a week and a half that I've even accepted. I am a 6 wing 7 counterphobic type, sexual subtype. I'm all focused on having close relationships with people and making those relationships with people. And that, in a sense, helps me find security in life, safety in numbers concept. But I'm also all about confronting my fears head on and not living in fear, but instead of confronting fear. And a lot of my videos ultimately are about that. So here's where it gets interesting. And I really am asking questions in this video out loud, more so than I am saying, hey, here's where I'm at in my life. I figured out the answer. I know, I'm really asking questions. There's no conclusion really, I don't think, at the end of this video, whenever it ends. Here we go. And it was a conversation that my sister and I were having. You know, she's ultimately saying, wow, so who we thought you were as a person, that's not really you. And to be fair, I'm 41. It was 30 years ago, in the year 1992, that I'd say I officially switched into my counterphobic subtype. Before that I was a nervous little boy. And then something clicked in me and I decided, well, why don't I just try to face these challenges so that I can stop living in fear. It was a subconscious thought. And even, it's only in the last week or so that I realized that I did that. And I've been living that way for 30 years now. But that's true. So it's interesting, my sister and I were talking about this and this conversation, well, so who are you really then? And that's a great question. I think the realest version of me is what you see in these newer Enneagram videos, because I'm not projecting this version of an 8 or even a 7. I'm able to just be the real me. And I've always had a complex about that my whole life. I've been very in touch with, let's say, Venom, how there's a dichotomy, there's this monster version of him. Same thing with the Incredible Hulk. I've always identified with superheroes who had 2 versions of themselves. This normal guy and just a normal average guy, and then this big monster of a beast. No wonder that makes sense, because that's exactly what I've been doing for the past 30 years of my life. So here's where it really gets interesting. So my wife and I just celebrated 14 years of being married. And I've told this story many times, but I'm going to tell it again here on this channel. When we first met, we were in a giant room. We were actually extras to be part of the CMT taping for this show on CMT. And I saw her from across the room and I walked up to her and confidently started talking to her. Couldn't even necessarily what I even said, but I did. And it worked. But it's funny because she told me that she didn't even see me as attractive until I asked her out. She was always aware of my confidence, but once I asked her out and then we started dating, and even now, she would tell you, she's most attracted to my confidence. And very clearly, I was most attracted to her physical appearance. That's typically how that whole thing works. But it's, she'd never even thought of me as an attractive guy until I asked her out, because then all that confidence was coming her way. So I think that's interesting because it makes me think, well, if I've been faking this confidence the whole time, does then that mean she's really attracted to me for who I really am? And on a similar note, I've been working for the same company for over 4 years now. And when I walked in there and did my interview, I'm sure I slipped into my whole 8 facade that 6 wing 7 sexual subtypes counterphobics do. You look like an 8 a lot of the time. So I walked in there confident. I wasn't like acting too eager to get the job. I was just talking about my skill set and my confidence level and my understanding of emotional intelligence. And I was hired on the spot. And at the time, I didn't even know that I even wanted the job. I'm glad I got the job. I've been there 4 years. I'm happy there. But it's funny because who got the job offer? The 8 version of me? And with my wife, like, who did she fall in love with? This 6 or the 8 version? And granted, it's been explained to me this way, and I accept this is the truth. I told you I wasn't going to end this with a conclusion, but I guess I do have a conclusion. A lot of times when I start making a video, I don't know how it's going to end. I just have a topic that I write down, and then I just talk for 5 to 8 minutes. The conclusion is this. My plan apparently worked. Subconsciously, 30 years ago when I was in 5th grade and I started, experimenting with this whole counterphobic subtype of being a 6. Instead of leaning on anxiety and fear, I started to take my challenges head on. That taught me and trained me to have confidence in myself, which is so much of a growth for any 6, is to find balance from within, to find identity from within. A lot of 6s are constantly asking people around them to help basically confirm their identity. And I'm going to be talking about that a lot more in future videos because I specifically do that, and that's kind of what woke me up to realize, wow, I actually am a 6 on an 8. But ultimately, this defense mechanism I created as a kid in 5th grade to basically act like I'm not afraid even if I am, that in the process of doing that, I actually overcome my fears, a lot of my fears. So much so that becomes my mindset. Whether I'm afraid of the thing or not, I'm just going to go ahead and act confident through it and hope that it all works out. So, is that the real me, or is that someone I pretend to be? I don't know. Keep in mind, I've never once taken an Enneagram test and it showed that I was a 6. Not once. And I've taken like at least 8 in the past year. That's pretty remarkable that my subconscious is so convinced to think like an 8. But ultimately, 6s react. And everything I do pretty much is a reaction, whereas an 8, they're not reacting. They truly just don't care about what's going on. 6s ultimately, they care about keeping their relationships strong and stable. And that comes from that security. So again, who am I really? Did I get my job and did I get my wife ultimately because I was just being me? Or because of my projection of who I was? And I didn't mean to, but I pretended to be an 8 or at least a 7 with an 8 wing. I think ultimately the plan worked and it taught me to act confident and therefore eventually become confident. That's what I think. That's where I'm at. Your comments belong right here.